Hamas is having a hard time adapting to Israel's new tactics in the Gaza Strip, and the IDF is having great successes destroying tunnels and rounding up the remnants of the terrorist organization's forces. But Hamas continues to steal humanitarian aid shipments and use civilian vehicles to transport their personnel. In Judea and Samaria, IDF forces are working against terrorist operatives in Jenin and Tulkarem while trying to prevent the problem from spreading to other areas. Meanwhile, the northern sector is boiling up, with rockets and UAVs continuing to be fired into Israel by Hezbollah, and now others are joining them, including Iranian-sponsored militias in Iraq who fired UAVs at the port of Haifa this week. Finally, the United States will file indictments against senior Hamas officials on the charge of murdering U.S. citizens on the 7th of October. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 334th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all its terrorist proxies in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. Heavy fighting is continuing in the Gaza Strip, with IDF forces constantly locating terrorist infrastructure and demolishing it, capturing weapons and ammunition, destroying Hamas terror tunnels, and eliminating terrorist fighters. Lieutenant Colonel Ariel Ben Shachar, the commander of the 924th Engineering Battalion of the 10th Brigade, commented that the Netzer Corridor, a highway that separates the Gaza Strip just south of Gaza City, is the main center of gravity in the battle. He added that it is a strategic asset for the IDF. Gaza City is the center of life, commercial and governmental activity of the Gaza Strip. The moment you cut it off from the entire strip, you are a bone in their throat. They find themselves unable to control and unable to rehabilitate. Meanwhile, in the south of Gaza, a Hamas command post set up inside the Naama College was destroyed over the past 24 hours. This is another example of how Hamas uses civilian facilities to carry out their terrorist activities. Also notable is the large number of tunnels that have been demolished in recent days, further constricting the space that Hamas has to work in and cutting their lines of communications and supplies. This includes a kilometer-long tunnel in the southern part of the strip that was demolished by the engineering unit of the Gaza Division and the Northern Brigade in cooperation with the Yahalom Special Forces Unit. Before the tunnel was demolished, it was searched and cleared. Intelligence materials and large stocks of weapons and ammunition were recovered from this tunnel. Last Friday, the IDF spokesman announced that the forces of the 98th Division completed the divisional activity in the Khan Yunis and Deir el-Balach area, and within the framework of the Yahalom unit and the combat teams of the 7th Brigade and the paratroopers destroyed 6 tunnels, the length of which reached about 6 kilometers of an underground route. Yesterday, it was announced that the fighting forces located in the Gaza Strip a Hamas manual for tunnel warfare, which describes in detail how to navigate in the dark, move stealthy underground in the Gaza Strip, and fire automatic weapons in close spaces to achieve maximum lethality. The guide, written in 2019, was obtained by the New York Times. Israeli officials were surprised by the in-text of the tunnel network. At the beginning of the war, they estimated that it stretched for about 250 kilometers. Now, estimates speak of double the scope, and the army continues to discover new tunnels every day. Recently published intelligence assessments reveal how the two sides were focused to adjust their fighting tactics during the war. Israel initially avoided sending troops into the tunnels, while Hamas focused on surprise attacks near the tunnel entrances and using the tunnels to hide and fire booby traps, explosives, and other weapons from a distance. Despite the challenges, the IDF managed to inflict significant damage on Hamas, flushing the terrorists from their strongholds and forcing them to abandon large parts of the tunnel networks. In the meanwhile, humanitarian aid continues to be moved in large quantities to take care of the residents of the Gaza Strip. Every day, hundreds of humanitarian aid trucks enter the Gaza Strip after undergoing a security check to make sure that no contraband is being smuggled through them. However, according to security assessment, the terrorists still managed to smuggle weapons and messages in and out of the Gaza Strip within these trucks. Beyond that, it is an open secret that much of the aid that is sent into the Gaza Strip is stolen, one way or another, by Hamas and other armed factions. This is one of the reasons that this war is dragging on for so long, because Hamas is getting resupplied in this way. The United Nations and other international aid agencies responsible for distributing this humanitarian aid appear to be unable to stop Hamas from stealing it. It needs to be mentioned that these trucks are guarded by private security firms who are paid by international donors. The trucks move along routes approved by the IDF and are expected to depart and arrive on specific timetables. But somehow, this is not solving the problem. Also, Hamas has been observed using these trucks and other civilian vehicles to move their own personnel and equipment around the strip. IDF officers have expressed deep frustration that this is being allowed to continue, as Hamas would have almost certainly been defeated months ago if it had been stopped. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you about the situation in the Gaza Strip. But if you want to stay updated in real time about what is happening in Israel, go to our website at tbnisrael.com or look for us on social media. Just search TBN Israel. We started this week in a difficult way, perhaps the most difficult since the Black Sabbath of October 7th. It started with rumors of the death of 6 hostages and continued on Sunday morning with the official announcement by the IDF spokesman that tore the hearts of the entire people of Israel into pieces. The primary investigation concluded by the IDF into the murder of the 6 hostages in a tunnel in Rafah reveals that observers standing outside the tunnels spotted the IDF soldiers moving in their direction, and they were able to warn the Hamas terrorists inside. This is apparently what motivated them to murder the hostages and flee the scene. Although the IDF troops searching this tunnel in Rafah were aware of this danger from assessments of previous hostage rescues, it was impossible to know for certain that they were being observed. The investigation is continuing, and we will update you with new information as it becomes available. In a related story, the United States Department of Justice announced on Tuesday that it will file indictments against senior Hamas officials Yahya Sinwar and his men for this involvement in the October 7th attack on Israel that led to the murder of more than 40 United States citizens.
Today, the Justice Department unsealed charges against Yair Sinwar and other senior leaders of Hamas for financing and directing a decades-long campaign to murder American citizens and endanger the security of the United States.
The criminal complaint filed in federal court in New York includes a specific mention of the late Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who was murdered by Hamas terrorists after being held captive for almost 11 months.
This weekend, we learned that Hamas murdered 6 more hostages, including Hirsch Goldberg Polin, a 23-year-old Israeli American. We are investigating Hirsch's murder and each and every one of the brutal murders of Americans as acts of terrorism.
The charges against Sinwar and the top of the terrorist organizations include conspiracy to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, conspiracy to murder American citizens, and conspiracy to use weapons of mass destruction. The United States also accuses Hezbollah and Iran of providing financial support and weapons, including rockets that were used in the attack. Sinwar, who has been hiding since the outbreak of the war under the soil of Gaza, and other terrorist leaders who have already been eliminated, will not be prosecuted. But United States officials say that at least one unnamed person is expected to be brought to New York to be prosecuted. They also said that the charges against Hamas leaders could lead to severe penalties ranging from life imprisonment to the death penalty. The investigation was entrusted to the FBI, which actively investigates the events related to American citizens as part of the ongoing efforts to fight terrorism. So please continue to spread the truth, share these videos on YouTube, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow us on social media by searching TBN Israel. Now, before we continue with today's report, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new sponsor for today's video. I know all of you are praying for us here, during these challenging times. Now, I want to give you the opportunity to become a true friend of Israel. The Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry was formed to help Jewish people escape the Nazi Holocaust in Europe even before the State of Israel was even announced. Over the past 86 years, Friends of Israel's support has remained unwavering, rooted in their biblical commitment to this sacred place. Now, during the current war, Friends of Israel is raising contributions to provide essential aid such as bomb shelters, ambulances, medical equipment, helmets, and fire-resistant clothing for the soldiers and for the first responders. They also offer training and specialized gear for volunteers and medical responders, playing a crucial role in saving lives and preparing for future challenges. Remember, every donation you make is going directly for the efforts of saving lives here in Israel. So please visit their page at www.foi.org and help us win this war. Thank you, and now back to the news, switching our focus to Judea and Samaria, which was recently designated by the IDF as an active combat zone, on the same level as the Gaza Strip. This is because, as reported on Tuesday by the Sky News Arabic news portal, the Palestinian Authority fears an attempt by the terrorist organization Hamas to carry out a coup in the West Bank as it did in the Gaza Strip back in 2007. According to Israeli security sources quoted in the report, the Palestinian network is as afraid as Israel is of a scenario of October 7th in Judea and Samaria. The sources added that the cooperation with the Palestinian Authority continues and saves lives. The Israeli source also referred to Tehran's effort to set fire to the region, saying, "In recent months, we have noticed an increase in Iranian efforts to turn this area into a real battleground. The Iranians are putting money and weapons in the region." In response, Israel has currently launched an extensive operation that has entered its 7th day to suppress terrorism in Judea and Samaria. I will make a brief comment here and say that anyone who has known and watched intelligence news or even what is happening on the Palestinian social media networks is not surprised by the bomb attacks that have been happening throughout Judea and Samaria in recent days. The Shin Bet already recognized the trend many months ago and warned that the nature of these attacks in this sector is changing and that the threat of explosive devices is gaining momentum. The threat of explosives can be divided into two different and disturbing parts, each in its own way. The first part is the booby traps that IDF soldiers encounter in the heart of the refugee camps. Pipe charges, improvised charges of dozens of kilometers of non-standard explosives, charges that are thrown away, as well as charges buried in the ground. Against this, the Central Command is working very aggressively through many and intensive operations in the heart of the refugee camps. Engineering forces with heavy tools uncover the shafts, discover the charges, and detonate them before they can be used against our troops. The second part of the threat of the explosives are those that leave the camps and arrive at roads, settlements, and the heart of cities in Israel. This happened frequently during the Second Intifada in the early 2000s, and the fear is that it could start happening once more. Even before the war, IED attacks began to appear in Judea and Samaria, a phenomenon that increased after October 7th. I should be noted that these are, at least at the moment, crude, improvised explosive devices that the terrorists put together in an improvised manner, but they are still deadly. These are dozens of kilograms of explosive materials that may cause great damage and, of course, take a toll in human life. The largest operation so far began last week in several locations in northern Samaria, led by the refugee camp in Jenin. Dozens of explosives were neutralized. Dozens of terrorists were eliminated in exchanges of fire by bombing from the air. Heavy fighting between the IDF and terrorist groups, as well as heavy armed criminal gangs, is ongoing, and there is every reason to think that they will intensify. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update on what is happening. Please continue to spread the truth, share, and follow us. And take a minute to look for the follow button and click it so you can subscribe to these videos and stay updated on a daily basis with what is happening in Israel. Switching our focus to Israel's northern border, the Israeli Air Force attacked multiple targets and positions belonging to the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization in the last 24 hours. Multiple hits were detected on rocket launching sites and other military infrastructure. In addition, the air defense unit successfully intercepted an unmanned aircraft that approached the territory of the country from the east without crossing the border or causing casualties. At the same time, the pro-Iranian Islamic resistance in Iraq took responsibility for shooting drones towards Israel. According to them, the target was the port of Haifa. In addition, 3 drones were launched from Iraq towards targets in Eilat, the southernmost city of Israel. Once again, I will make a brief comment here, because behind all of these attacks and weapons stand the head of the axis of evil, the Islamic Republic of Iran. While Iran threatens to respond to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, its missile program offers one of the few ways to directly hit Israel. However, there are many questions about the true effectiveness of this plan. Back in April, Iran became the first country to launch such an attack on Israel since Saddam Hussein, the Iraqi dictator, launched missiles at Israel during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. However, most of the Iranian missiles failed to hit their targets. Many of them were intercepted by the United States-led coalition. Others failed to launch or crashed in flight. And even those that managed to reach Israel mostly missed their targets. The Iranian missiles are not accurate enough. They are becoming less suitable for conventional military operations and may become more useful as a tool of terror. It should be recalled that this is how Iran used ballistic missiles during the war with Iraq that raged for most of the 1980s. To sum up, Iran's missile program offers a certain ability to strike Israel, but the many problems with the launch and accuracy of the missiles undermine its potential to pose a significant military threat to the Jewish state. Iranian officials, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, may argue that the attack demonstrated their international presence, but a recent report by the Associated Press indicates that these missiles are not yet ready for widespread use in conventional military operations. Once again, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on developments going forward. But please take an active part in spreading the truth and in prayer. Please unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. And if you want to support our work financially so that together we can continue and produce up-to-date and detailed quality content about what is happening in Israel, you can donate to us through the link that you see at the bottom of the screen, or go to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. Before concluding, I have one more comment to make, and this time it's about Israel itself. We're in the midst of an existential war, and precisely at this time, we must be united as the people of Israel. We are disintegrating from within and playing into the hands of the enemy. Because we are fighting a terrorist organization whose entire goal is the destruction of the state of Israel, they are using all means, including extensive psychological warfare. We must not forget who the real enemy is, who only less than a year ago reminded us that for them, there is no difference between types of Jews, political views, ideology, or origin. They just want to destroy all of us, all Israelis, including Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Bedouins, Druze. It doesn't matter to them. And that is why we will all pray hard for the integrity and unity of the people of Israel. So please join us in this prayer. Pray for the hostages to return home safely. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are fighting in the borders in the Gaza Strip and risking their lives every day. And join us in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. And together, we will win this war.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.